Okay, just pretend you don't notice how messed up that lamp looks, okay? It's fine. Just don't look at it. Anyway, hello. Welcome back to week 2 of Let's Make a Book Baby, where I had an epic crash out, including writing the main character having a spicy scene with someone who isn't his love interest because I wanted to use it as a foil, and now you're all gonna hate me. Uh-oh. Okay, anyway, week 2 has been a roller coaster. I am taking you along the journey every week, updating you how it is to write a book from start to finish. So that includes writing it, plotting it, editing it, revising it, designing the physical book, and then actually publishing it. So let's get into the shenanigans of this week. So yes, I did write the spicy scene with a different character. Hear me out. I think that you're gonna really like this idea. I realized that Ari has a lot of different issues in terms of his confidence. Like, he has a lot of self-doubts on if he is good enough at things, and it's not how he was raised. It's because he just puts so much pressure on himself to do his best because he really, really wants to step in and take care of the entire werewolf pack. Because yes, this is a werewolf story. Ari is the main character. His parents were featured in my other steamy romance series. It's a paranormal shifter romance called My Shy Alpha, and Ari is their trans guy son. He has a lot of obstacles in his way as well, and I really wanted to keep tying that into the story in every way possible and get you on the same page of Ari's background without having to just keep repeating it to you. So I had this idea that, okay, in this werewolf world, they have fated mates, which are supposed to be like kind of like a soulmate, right? Ari has always wanted that. He really wants to have a family, and you see that in the epilogue of the end of the My Shy Alpha series. He's always wanted to be a dad. So I do have to guide us there somehow throughout the book, amidst all these other problems that he now has as he's grown up and had all this pressure on him to try to step up and take his parents' place in the pack as the leader, because that's what he's wanted to do also in more of a nurturing way, because this is an Omegaverse book, so they can shapeshift into wolves at will, and they also are like Omega, Beta, and Alpha, and they all have different things related to that. But in my world, they also have gender identities in terms of werewolves. So I wanted Ari's fated mate, Marcus, to be more gender fluid with his werewolf gender, and I'm really seeing that more because I kept trying to write Marcus as just being Omega, as he was originally assigned in the book when he was a baby. He feels like he has a lot of layers to him, and he's a lot more complex, and I need to get to know him more because of that. And I want the readers to also kind of get to know him as the book goes along. Before that point, I wanted to show how different Ari's life is when he's so much so in his head. Like, he's just like a little ball of stress. He's tense, like physically tense. He's quiet otherwise, but he has a lot of thoughts and opinions. And you can see that when his best friends come around. I think I told you that last week. So his personality is definitely coming out more and more through every scene. And in this scene, he has a heat partner. So we talked briefly about heat last week. In the werewolf world, it's like literally like how a cat goes into heat, where they're like yearning, let's say, strongly yearning to be mated. And this is going to be unhinged. Like, I don't know. I picked the weirdest topic to talk to you every week about. So that's my fault. But for Ari, it's not going to be as pleasant of an experience because he has a disability that is a fictional disability where his heats are incredibly painful. Spoiler alert. Part of it has to do with how much he is in denial. It's pretty easy to figure out that Marcus is his fated mate, except the both of them are in absolute denial over it because they've known each other for so long. They didn't have that insta-love meet cute moment that other werewolves have. So they're expecting that and not looking at the person that is their favorite person in the entire world. Like, hello. Which I wanted it to be more of a slow burn because of that. And at the same time, I still want it to be a very spicy romance because this series is incredibly spicy, like high heat. They have different social rules as werewolves because imagine Does a dog care that it runs around naked all the time? Do wolves care about that either? No. So if they're shifting back from their human form to their wolf form or vice versa, they're gonna just be like butt naked. To us, that's crazy. Like, no. I mean, some communities, obviously, nudists and stuff, that's what they do because it's natural, which, you know, makes sense. This is that kind of type of community. They still wear clothes, but they're like not bothered by that. And similarly, they do not take sexual relationships as like they don't consider it the same way or as taboo as we might have thoughts about, especially in the United States. I have this idea that while they're waiting to find their fated mate, they will still have to go through heat every month and they need a heat partner to help them through that in the meantime to make it less excruciating. So sort of like friends with benefits. And Ari is with someone like that. I have noticed so much misogyny when I introduce any women in any book. It's bad. So the thing about this is when I'm going to introduce any woman into a story, I already anticipate a lot of hate and it makes me incredibly upset. This is the one thing that really gets to me. It gets even worse when it's a story featuring men loving men as the main pairing. But Ari is bisexual, and so he's going to be bisexual in the book. You don't have to show like date other people in order to be considered a valid bisexual person, but that's just how it worked out for him. His heat partner is his good friend Kinsley. She's another sweet Omega. So I wanted to use the entire scene as a foil for how it will look later on as we have this slow burn developing, because when he's with Kinsley, he's very in his head and focused and worried about if he's doing things right or how he appears, like his physical appearance. And I think that Marcus is really going to tear his walls down because he generally feels really safe around him. And I think that's super cute. If you don't know what a foil is, basically it's when you take one thing that is one way and another thing that is one way, and if you put it into a story where they are next to each other, they show off their differences in a lot more of an obvious or extreme sometimes way. So for example, this is why a lot of people really like the trope Grumpy Sunshine, where one character is super grumpy and the other character is very sunshiny and happy. And the grumpy character shows off how happy the sunshiny character is because they're grumpy. And likewise, the sunshiny character shows off how grumpy the grumpy character is because they're so happy, you know? That is a foil. And oftentimes it's to do with personalities, but you can do this with anything. And so having Ari be in a type of sexual relationship where he does not feel connected romantically and is a lot more in his head is a great foil for the person eventually who he's supposed to be with, who breaks his walls down. So that is the reason for it. And I think it's, like I said, going to end up being very cute because it's almost like if I just put them in a scene, you'd be like, wow, that's touching that Marcus breaks his walls down. But if you've already seen how tense he is otherwise, not in a mean way, but just like very in his head and stressed, it's going to show off just how much Marcus relaxes him in general and make it even sweeter. So I think I'm still going to keep that. I feel like people will still be pissed that he has any type of spicy scene with anyone else, but to me it doesn't even have the same vibe. So I'm taking a risk to see what happens. Honestly, some part of me still felt in the back of my head a little bit off, and I don't know if it's because I'm having to establish so much lore in the beginning of the book, and I don't always write in chronological order. But this time I'm just feeling like I want to write at least somewhat in the beginning still before I start jumping around, just so I can get to know Ari better. It might seem way more extreme to me because I'm focusing on that, but I really got in my head once I started looking at the word count, and it was at around 13,000 words. Now, going back and learning from this after I have stopped crashing out, I was like, oh my god, the story hasn't hardly progressed and it's already 13,000 words. Honestly, that's kind of normal. First of all. Second of all, there was a whole scene in there that I forgot I was going to probably remove or just use as inspiration. So that's a good maybe 3,000 or more words that I might not even use. So like of course I'm still establishing everything And I think since I'm putting so much pressure on myself, like, and there's a lot to explain, to be very fair, but I'm like, yeah, werewolves, they're able to use mind link, which is telepathic communication between pack members or between mates, and fated mates. This is what that means. Then there's like a mate bond, and that only exists if they bite each other's neck, which is called like a marking someone. There's so much to explain in fantasy subgenres that I think, to me, it was seeming more extreme than it actually reads, because I am writing it into scenes, so it's not like I'm sitting there and explaining all these things. It's like I will explain it as those situations arise, but it feels bigger to me because I'm putting too much pressure on myself. That's what I've noticed now that I have finished week 2. It started to make things feel very stagnant, because on top of that, I did kind of still sense something was off with Ari, and it made me start overthinking everything until the weekend. And this is when the main crux of the crash out happened. It all came together where I had accidentally watched some things that were triggering, which is fine. If you haven't been through PTSD treatment, that's actually good to do, because avoidance is what exacerbates PTSD symptoms. If I really want to watch something, I should follow my values and be like, I want to watch a show right now, even if it has this triggering content in it, because avoiding that is not just making me miss out like in how I want to use my time in my short lifespan, but it also teaches my brain that something that I'm avoiding sends a message like, oh, this is like genuinely dangerous or can actually harm me in the moment, even if I'm just watching it. Of course, this is different if you have a lot more extreme symptoms, but I think I did kind of overdo it and pushed myself out of the window of tolerance, which is another PTSD term. It basically means I was in my PTSD brain by Saturday, and I had a book crisis. I had a bunch of PTSD dreams from Friday to Saturday overnight, and I woke up, like, very first thought, I don't know why this happened, but I was like, I need to write a disclaimer in my book, like in the first page of the book, that says don't walk through the brush like all these werewolves do, because you could get Lyme disease. So hear me out. I've had chronic Lyme disease for a long time. It took me over 9 years, a bunch of my childhood decimated by this, and I would never just go out in the forest and walk through the brush. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't do that even with protective gear on, because they still can jump on you and you might not see them and check yourself properly. But people don't even know to like check your body for ticks, all that stuff. So that's where my thought process was. But it made me realize, like, wait a second, it would be perfect to have a werewolf have Lyme disease, because like pets can die from Lyme disease, and you know, that would work really well with the werewolf book. And I was like, what if this is what's missing? What if like this is what I feel like is missing in Ari's story? If you don't remember this from last week, Ari already has a disability. He has very painful heats, and so that's an extra reason why I wanted to show his heat partner in the beginning of the story, because he helps her through her yearning but he doesn't experience that because he's in so much pain that he doesn't have any desire in his body. Like, you know when you feel so sick that you're like, hell no. Yeah. But if I were to give him Lyme disease on top of that, it would ruin his other future dreams of wanting to become a pack leader. If I wanted to have the traditional sense of a pack leader needing to be physically strong to protect the pack and also nurturing of the pack, because he has those qualities right now. But I know people are like, oh, like disabled people, you're still strong. Like, let's be real, chronically ill person, my body does have moments pretty much most of the time where I don't have physical strength, and that's a symptom of my diseases. So there's no denying that it would impact and basically ruin his life. I started talking about this with my friend Michelle, who you might have seen on my Twitch streams as Michelle Designed, and they were like, that would be super interesting. And then I brought it up to my mom, because I don't know, something in me was like, oh, but this, I'd have to rewrite everything. It would ruin like all my future plans for him. And then I was like getting in my head, I was like, I'm gonna have to like unpack this for myself and get into like my own lasting concerns even after I've done all this work of, oh no, like I'm gonna have to burden my partners and stuff. And Ari already has that, it's just not as extreme. So this was going to be a big decision. My mom was like, no, don't do that to yourself. You were going to write a fun book. And I was like, that's true. This would make it more, it would be a lot darker of a book. I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't like anything about this book anymore. And then I was already in my PTSD brain, you have to remember. I had already planned to meet with my friend who's also writing a book. So we were meeting at a coffee shop. And when I got there, they're like, do you want to take a walk? I've already still had a lot of fatigue, but that meant that I didn't go outside very much. And I felt comfortable being like, yeah, I just probably can't do too much because I know that this person understands as another person who's chronically ill. So we took a walk that was doable for our bodies, and it was good because I had not been outside. And it helped. We talked this out, and my friend had a very neutral perspective, and I noticed immediately just explaining this that it was not as big of a deal as I felt like it was. And I could write another werewolf book with a character with Lyme disease if it felt like it would be too much and change the messages that I wanted to share in this book. So that's what it came down to. I also don't want to take away from Ari's current disability. Not to say that you can't have multiple, because I have multiple, but I think that this is a story where it would entirely change everything I wanted to share with you about it. So I was like, okay, I think that I can put that aside and write a future book with that, because a werewolf book where the main character has Lyme disease would be really, really good. After we had that talk and walk, I just was like, I'm gonna not think about this when we write together and sit down and actually get to working at the coffee shop. And I wrote a very cute first interaction between Marcus and Ari, and it made me very happy. I have a lot of plans with them that are a little bit of spoilers, so I'm gonna tell you one because you've made it far into this video, okay? They have a secret connection that they can't tell anyone about, because when Ari had shapeshifted into his wolf at one point, he didn't mean to bite Marcus and his wolf, you know? So Marcus has a tiny little fang mark on his neck, which is so conveniently happens to be the spot where you would mark a fated mate, or just a mate in general, to form a bond that soul bonds them and allows them to feel each other's emotions. Wild werewolf lore, I know. I've had this idea and I was very excited about this, and I think that I'll write it in the back cover description, so maybe it's not too big of a spoiler, but they have this connection where they're only kind of half mated to each other, and you don't find out until Ari and Marcus can mind link with one another, and you're not supposed to do that if you were not from the same pack. And Marcus is all the way in Sweden across the world, so they're very much so not in the same pack. And Ari's like, I haven't told anyone about this, but then you're like, oh, no wonder he's so worried about not having a fated mate yet, because he also kind of already ruined that potential connection. How upsetting would it be if you found out that your fated mate was already mated to someone else with this connection that they can't seem to get rid of, but it's not even a full-blown mate connection? That's what he's really afraid of, and it is making him not able to see what's very clearly in front of him with his favorite person in the world. They're having this really cute mind link conversation. Marcus is going to surprise Ari, but Ari doesn't know that, and come visit in person. So I got very excited. I accidentally wrote until 4 a.m. So after all this big crisis, that was a very big difference in turnaround. I saw it was 2 a.m. and I was like, oh god, I need to sleep. I'm doing stuff tomorrow. I was like, let me just write a few notes. By 3:45 a.m. I had written so much that it was almost 20,000 words. And I was like, wow, okay, this is going well. On Sunday, I woke up and I was doubting everything. It's not just me being a writer, because you will doubt everything, right? It's also because I have OCD, which is known as the doubt disorder. Something just felt off about Marcus. Something felt very off. And I was like, is this because he's not seeming to be as Omega-ish? But no. If you remember at the start of this, you may have seen a Twitch stream of mine where I was like, I'm so glad that this is a standalone book with only Ari's perspective and not another dual perspective. I think this is gonna have to be a dual perspective. I think Marcus needs his perspective, and I have, as soon as I accepted that by the end of Sunday, because I was brainstorming their spicy interactions and all this stuff, and I was like, but you wouldn't know the extra tension here. But then I was trying to picture his perspective, and I was like, oh, that would make it so much more tense and dramatic. So I'll tell you all about that next week. It's helping me see the rest of the book clearly. I hope that you enjoyed this recap, very wild recap of my emotional roller coaster. This is very common. It happens to me a lot. It's probably going to keep happening to me every week. I don't know if it will be as extreme. Like maybe once I get more settled into these characters, I'll just be excited about everything. But that's where we're at right now. In case you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to hear how next week's process goes and all the way up until when I publish this book, whenever that's going to be. I don't know. I'm planning that right now. We'll see. I'll tell you when I have a better idea about it. If you want to catch up with me on Twitch in the meantime while you're waiting, I will be continuing to do streams 1 to 4 times every week. Sometimes there'll be writing streams. Other times I'll be doing stuff for fun like gaming, or I'll be drawing something. And this week I may just draw Ari for fun because I want to. I see him so clearly and he's adorable. I love him. So I'm very excited to tell you more. I will see you again next week, and I hope you are having a great week and staying safe. Goodbye for now.